Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Best Bet. I'm your host, Frank Scatoni, and we've got another terrific card on tap here at Del Mar with an 11-race Sunday program that features two stakes races. The always interesting Cougar 2 at 1.5 miles on the main track. It's a grade 3. And the Wicker Stakes, a restricted stakes at 1 mile on the turf, which I analyzed for the Del Mar website. So you can find out who I like in that race after this seminar here. We're going to dig into a few races in just a minute, but here's the weekly reminder. This is not a traditional selection show. We are not going to talk about every race. We're going to look at specific races and wagering strategies that offer the best opportunities to try and make a decent score. If you're watching live, feel free to leave us a comment or ask us any questions. If we have time, we'll try to get to that. The show will also be archived on Del Mar's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. So, without further ado, let me introduce today's guest. He's a horse player, he's a tournament player, he's an owner, and a public handicapper. Please welcome Ciaran Thornton. Ciaran, what's good?
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to have you because I know every time we talk about the races, you always the interesting price horses that we'll get to once we start going over the races. But I thought you had an interesting concept for today. When you sent me over a couple of highlights of the things you wanted to talk about, you thought it would be a good idea to try and treat today sort of like your own personal handicapping contest. Because, you know, we have the Del Mar 2-day event coming up next week, and that's a huge and prestigious tournament. You want to kind of have like a little practice run today to kind of hone your skills for next week. So tell us, we'll get into that approach a little later, but tell us what you like so much about contests.
It really forces you to focus on your best hunches, your best research, and hammer those hunches. We often, I know back in the day, had a habit of not really betting things that I thought offered value or should win, kind of hedging my bets, throwing favorites in here and there. In the contest, a favorite's not going to get you to win the contest. You need some value prices. You need to dig them out and bet them correctly. And playing those contests has actually helped me do that with the real money world.
Well, yeah, that your approach, I think, is very interesting because the way you analyze the races, you're just naturally inclined to find horses that are big prices and that a lot of people would not necessarily consider. And I know you can talk about some of those later on. But the other school of philosophy when it comes to handicapping tournaments is you pick and choose one or two spots, and it's okay if the horse is a short price, but you just have to bet a heck of a lot more money. You got to push all in. You're kind of the opposite. You want to be able to save some bankroll and try and bet a little to win a lot because you usually come up with some crazy horses and crazy prices. So I love it. There's a little something for everyone. And if you have to play to your skill set, whatever your strengths are. So if your strengths are sniffing out bombs, you only need to catch one or two of them. But if your strength is more of the short price horses, you have to hit them 1, 2, or 3 of them and push all in each time to get to your number. So I just think it's interesting that there's those two kinds of approaches.
And especially in this day and age, we see so many favorites flop. And if you're really relying on those favorites to get you through, you're going to be hurting just as much as the people chasing those big price horses as well.
Right. It goes both ways. So I know you write up your daily analysis for CaliforniaPick4.com. So you're doing all of the work day in and day out. And I know California is your main circuit and you follow it so closely. But tell us a little bit about your approach to handicapping and what you might be looking for when you're trying to find that value horse.
Well, like, whenever we look at it, we look at the race, we look at see which horses are racing, and then we see if we can map out how we think the race is going to play out. Is it going to be all speed? Are they going to go slow? Do we not know what's going to happen? And then look at the favorites and see, there'll be times I will bet a favorite. I don't just toss favorites. If there's a favorite or a horse that I think, even if it's 2-1, is going to win the race, why would I try and beat him if I know that horse is going to win? And there are times when it's logical to bet the favorite, but then there's times we're going to look and say, you know what, this is a very vulnerable favorite. And maybe it's because he's fast on the front. So I'll look at it and go, okay, I want to find a closer that's going to swallow this favorite up and give me a good price, especially in the contest. That's what you're looking to do.
Right. So once you isolate the race, the favorite, if you like the favorite, you don't want to be a hero and try and beat the horse. And but your approach mostly for contests, I would assume, is when you find that race where the favorite is vulnerable and you could pick a couple of different price horses who you think can get the job done, right? Because, well, let me ask you this. Would there ever be a time in a contest where, you made a sizable bet on the chalk and pushed all in or something? Or will you always kind of, maybe you pass that race and be back more in your comfort zone, trying to find those long shots and playing doubles or trying to hit a big trifecta?
Well, today I'm going to give you an example where I'm tossing a favorite, but I'm still using the favorite. Because one of the things I really hate is when I suss out a bomb and the bomb hits and then a favorite either wins the race before or the race after. So if there's really a long shot I like, I'll actually throw in a saver bet, if you will, with the favorite to my long shot, just so at least I'll get some decent money out of it. Yeah,
maybe like in a way to kind of preserve your bankroll for the next race, especially in contests where you have to have a certain number of minimum plays. Like I forget what the exact number is with Del Mar, but you might have to make 3, 4, or 5 mandatory plays at 500 a pop or whatever it is. So there is a lot of game theory, a lot of interesting strategy going on when you're playing these contests. It's not like the mythical contest where it's $2 win place and you don't have too many decisions to make. You just have to pick the horse.
Yes.
The live bankroll contests are so much more complicated and so much more interesting, in my opinion.
I think the live money are really that's where you see the really great handicappers, and there's some who do fantastic in both.
Yes,
it's totally different mindset with the live money because you're managing bankroll, you're looking at the leaderboard. You got to see, can I catch this guy? What do I need to bet now to catch this guy? Do I want to catch him? What's the prize pool? What am I hunting for? Pick and pray.
Right,
you've already made your decision. It's over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're making some good points there, but you said that there are players who excel at both, and I would say that you're one of them, because every time I see a result on horse tourneys or something, your name is always near the top of the leaderboard. And I know you've also had success in the live bankroll plays as well. Obviously, you have to have a different strategy and a different approach to each one of those. But do you feel like you enjoy one more than the other, or if you feel like you're more proficient at one more than the other?
I really love the live money contests. I think they really show that you can manage all the different aspects. It's one thing picking a bomb. It's another thing structuring the bet the correct way, and continuing that momentum and building that money. The mythical helps. The live money, it's hard for a lot of people when they go in. They treat it like money, like Breeders' Cup betting challenge, it's 10K, or even next week's Del Mar. You start with the $4,000 bankroll and you might get it up to 10, 12, 15,000. You got to not treat it as 10, 12, 15,000. You actually got to treat it as, monopoly money, or it'll impact your thinking. You're like, wow, I'm really betting $8,000 on this race. You have to think of it as like, nope, it's not real money till the end.
Yeah, you have to go, if you're trying to win, you have to go in there fully prepared to wind up at zero, and not have to worry about it, because you cannot bet with scared money. You'll never win a contest if you're holding back, because you don't want to spend the money to make the money. And the perfect example of that, and I don't think I could have ever done this, but last year when Drew Coatney, who's been a guest of the show, he bet $97,000 in the last race on Flightline, because to him, Flightline couldn't lose, and he was turning Flightline, getting maximum value on a horse. I forget what Flightline went off at, but let's say he was turning, a 4 to 5 shot into a 3 to 1 shot, because with all the prize money that was being added on to what he would win if he finished first, he was getting great value. Now, he had to have the stones to get up to the window and bet that was $97,000.
And they've actually done that the last couple of years at the Breeders' Cup. They've gone mega bets into the favorite in the last race. And
Yeah,
it's paid off.
no, I know Matt Miller too, who was friends with Drew, and he's also been on this show as well. That's one of his things. He kind of maps out a plan. He tries to get to the end in the least amount of steps possible. So if he's right about his first opinion, he builds his bankroll, and then he pushes in very aggressively on the second opinion. And if he gets there, then he figures out, hey, what's the final number I think I need to win the tournament. And then he figures out how he gets there with the rest of his bankroll. It's fascinating. Like I said, there are so many different approaches, and there's a lot of game theory going on. You try and get into the heads of other players, what they might do in a situation. What's the leader going to do? What's the person, I'm in 10th. What's the guy in 15th going to do?
What's your buddy going to do?
What?
What's your buddy going to do? Like you last year when you hit that big trifecta at the tournament next week, and I was like, you know what, I got to go catch up to Frank now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's motivation for you because you saw my name ahead of you in the leaderboard, and you said, yep. What? I'm coming to get you, buddy. And I think you did, actually. I think at Del Mar you ended up finishing second.
Yeah, I lost by $112. $112.
Well, you know what? Next week's a new week and a new contest. Two other topics I want to talk about. We talked about your approach to handicapping and contest play. What is your general approach to day-to-day wagering? Are there certain bets you gravitate toward, or you just kind of let the card and the horses dictate how you play?
I really love the doubles, but I just grew up with my dad. That was his favorite bet. And then back in the day when we first started going to the races out here in California, it was just the early daily double and the late daily double. So even in the contest plays, it's one of my favorite bets is the daily double and then the exacta. Those are probably the ones I rely on the most. When I want to get really fancy and I have a really good feel for a long shot, I'll try and key some long shots, or I'll trifecta keys with that long shot.
Okay, we'll get into some of your wagering strategy just a bit, but the last topic we talked about was how you are pretty formidable in both mythical and live money contests. And how much did you pay this guy to send in this comment, Ciaran? You read it on the screen there?
No comment.
Checks in the mail. All right, well, let's move on to the last topic I want to talk about before we get into the actual strategy of trying to make some big money today. Over the last few years, you've had a bit of success as a horse owner. You've had a piece of the multiple graded stakes winner Gold Phoenix. It's part of Little Red Feather Racing. And last year, I know you guys won 2 races here at Del Mar with Comanche Country right off the boat. So pretty remarkable little run you guys have had over the last 2 years. Talk to us about being an owner and what that experience is like. And do you plan to get more involved? And are there any horses you have this meet that you're excited about?
Well, I've been around horse racing my entire life. I grew up around them with my dad in Ireland. So I was pretty into the horse racing scene, and I always wanted to get into the ownership side, but just waited, and finally jumped in with the Little Red Feather people and, Gary and Billy. I think it's helped take my handicapping game, to a new level. It's given me a lot of insight. When you have some skin in the game, you really start to understand why owners and trainers are doing certain things with the horses, what the workouts really are, the timing, why you're going for this race. You recall last year with Gold Phoenix, I had told you and Tom at the start of the year, Del Mar handicap was the target, and you guys were like, yeah. And it ended up being the target. It took 8 months, but we got there.
Oh, I remember very well, because if it wasn't for Gold Phoenix, I wouldn't have finished, in the top 7 at the Pacific Classic Day contest. That was a huge bet for me to really move me up the leaderboard. And it's funny, I know you told me and Tom that, and we watched Gold Phoenix all year long. And then I had Billy Koch on this show early in the meet, and I asked him about some of the Little Red Feather horses he was excited about this last year's meet.
Yes.
And he talked about a couple of them, and he mentioned Gold Phoenix, and I said, well, Gold Phoenix is going to win the Del Mar handicap. He says, oh, well, we'll see. I hope so. And sure enough, he did. He ran a good race. But Gold Phoenix is going to be, he's going to be running soon.
Yeah. Next Sunday in the Eddie Reed or that.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so we'll be rooting for you there. Any other horses you have coming up in the next couple of weeks here?
Yeah, we actually had another that was supposed to race next week, just off the boat from Ireland, and Riley. She raced in Ireland last month, and the plan was actually to send her to Royal Ascot. But the rain delayed the race a week, and we ended up running second. Favorite knows us on the line, and that horse ended up winning that Royal Ascot race. So looking forward to seeing her race here this summer.
Yeah, that's some pretty good form. I know you sent me the replay of that race, and I was very impressed by her performance. So something to be very excited about when you have a young horse, and you have a young horse who you believe is good enough to compete here at Del Mar.
Especially with the ship and win bonus money, it's just been, fantastic. Bringing a lot of horses out here to California.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that she didn't get to go to Royal Ascot, because I would pay good money to see you in a top hat and tails hanging out in the Royal Enclosure.
we were getting ready. Actually, the last 2 years, the year prior, Comanche was supposed to be targeted there too, but we ended up shipping her out here versus racing there. So one of these days we're going to get there.
It'll happen. It'll happen when the moment's right. All right, well, let's get into today's play. If you were playing in a handicapping tournament, you kind of want to gear up for next weekend's big 2-day event. So let's just dig right in and show some of the players out there what your approach is when it comes to building a bankroll and trying to make a big score in one of these contests. Let's start off in race 8. It's a maiden special weight for 2-year-olds going 5 furlongs on the main track. The morning line favorite is also one of my favorite race callers. Number 1, Miramati at 8-5. Named after, of course, Frank Miramati, who calls races at Santa Anita and is currently at Saratoga calling the races there. But let's talk about Miramati, the horse. He was bet to favoritism 3-5 in his debut, and he was a bit of a nutcase before the race, and he didn't have it. And there was another horse in that race who ran a really, really good one. But Miramati still finished second, and it was his debut, so I won't be too harsh about that. But I'm a little worried about the rail draw for this horse, since inside is not where you wanted to be the first 2 days. I know you have some sneaky horses in here, so why don't you tell us about this race?
Well, like you said, I mean, the stats on this race, like the post, and it's not just this year, we're 0 for 4 so far at this distance on dirt, but the last 5 years, 1 for 49 with the one post at 5 furlongs. And maybe today, because I'm throwing another couple of horses in there, the one will win the race. It's been that kind of weekend here at Del Mar for us when we're looking for these long shots. But I mean, you can't argue with those stats. And, the fact that it's going to be over bet so much, there's actually going to be some value in some of these other, horses. And speaking of the stats, if you go to the website, handicapping page where they can see your plays every day and my plays and some of the other people, go down the tools, you get some fascinating stats on, which posts do well, which jockeys and trainers. And, as we know, this is a very streaky meet. And when jockeys and trainers, get hot, you gotta ride that train here. And when they get cold, you got to hop off them sometimes as well.
Sure. So if you look at the screen there, you wanted to approach each race as if you had $100 bankroll and trying to make a little bit of a score. So tell us who you like in this race and how you're going to leverage your opinion.
Well, my long shot in here is Raging Torrent, 20-1. We've got bullet workouts. Jockey's been winning a lot, and O'Neill, of course, is off to a great start at this meet as well, so that helps as well. He's got four winners this weekend. You got to pay attention who's hot and cold. So I'm trying to beat the favorite on the inside post. And then the second choice I have here, Express Line, could be a prep race, but again, the price is right if I'm trying to beat the favorite in here by throwing that one in. Pony Express, I think, should be the favorite, not Miramati. And we're getting 5-2. And we actually talk a lot about, value sometimes. And, value doesn't always mean, a 20-1 shot as well. If we think a horse should be even money or 6-5 and we're getting 5-2 or 3-1 and we think it has a really good shot, that's something we should, look at as well.
That is absolutely tremendous value. And I'm going to have you walk us through your bets. But I just look at the last one, 24 to win. Did I put the wrong horse there? Did you want to bet that on the long shot Raging Torrent, or were you going to bet it on Pony Express? I might have mistyped there.
I was going to bet it on Raging Torrent.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because I know you wouldn't do a win bet on a shorter price horse in a contest. So I'm going to fix that. But there's another thing I wanted to say. One of my favorite columns every year in the racing form before Del Mar started was Jay Frivman used to do a 2-year-old roundup. He'd walk around the barns in the morning and talk to all the trainers and ask them who their prospects were. And it was a great column, and you'd always find horses in there that Jay talked about that would come back and win during the meet. Brad Free has been helping. Jay retired, but before Jay retired, Brad Free was helping him do the column. So Brad Free did it this year, and lots of useful information. And this is what he had to say about Pony Express. He interviewed Sadler about this horse, and Sadler said he's a gorgeous horse, but his pedigree, looks and hints at distance. He's by Gun Runner. You don't necessarily think the shortest race, but he's trained well, and we're not going to get in his way. So this horse has ability, and keep an eye. If the horse doesn't win today, you could probably look for this horse going maybe 7 furlongs next time, and then you can go to the windows. So before we move on, let me just change this to the 5 horse. I'm going to save that. And now walk us through your bets here with your $100 bankroll.
The trifecta, I like these 3 horses, so I'm planning on them beating the favorite. But, Miramati, being the horse he is, second or third is not out of the question. So for that trifecta, I'm looking for him to be underneath. And, going 3 on the top and 4 on the bottom 2 gives me a little bit of, room for it to come out the way I want. Now, the double, I know I talked about, I think Miramati might lose, but my play in the next race is such a good price. And I talked about that earlier, that one of the things that really annoys me when I suss out a really good long shot is when a favorite wins either the leg before or the leg after, and I'm not able to tie into that favorite. So that's why in my doubles, I've got Miramati in one of those tickets.
Yeah, we'll talk about the next race in a second, because I know you like a 20 to 1 shot in the next race. But it also looks like you're doing maybe a saver double.
Yes.
In case that 20 to 1 shot doesn't win the next race.
Just to, my hope on that, and this is without me, race time, I may not do this bet because, we're going to be looking at the probables on this, and if the probables with this make sense, this would be how I would use that ammo. We won't know till we get to that race. These horses, Miramati may end up being 1 to 9, and we're getting fantastic prices on these other horses. It comes down to the actual, race time. I have a plan. Like what I did for this show today is pretty much what I do when I do my live money contests. I plan out how I plan to bet every single race. And then when we get to those races, sometimes I may not do it. I'll go, you know what? The pays aren't good enough. I'm going to just wait to the next race or push more in on my next play.
Yeah, you absolutely have to be able to pivot, but I'm with you. It makes complete sense to have a game plan so you're not going into the day blind. You have a little bit of a roadmap so you can get to where you want to end up. And if a race doesn't play out like you're expecting it on the tote board, you pivot, you change, you adapt. Maybe you pass the race entirely, or like you said, you're finding you're getting tremendous value on some of the other horses in the race because the public lapped onto a horse and are over betting the horse. So I love that you have a plan, but at the same time, you're actually very, very nimble based on the up to the minute information. I think all horse players need to do that. So let's move on to race 9. It's the $100,000 Wicker Stakes, a 1 mile turf affair with the rails at 0 feet. Morning line favorite is number 11, Iridio, 7 to 2. He won this race last year and recently just missed in a grade 1. He always seems to run well, but a lot of times he has a tendency to kind of settle for the minor awards. I did this race for the Del Mar website, so you can see who I like by going to my website, frankscatoni.com. Click on the Del Mar button, and that will take you to my analysis at dmtc.com. Looks like you have a key horse here at a huge price. Tell us who you like in this race and how you're going to bet it.
Well, I went with Lamplighter Jack, and as you know, Simonoviches are here. We've met them through the contest world, myself and yourself, over the years, and they've actually brought a lot of horses out to California this year, to Santa Anita, and now down here to Del Mar. Really love supporting, those trainers who bring their horses out here. And Lamplighter's just not had a lot of luck since they came out here, but the way this race sets up, especially if there's slow frac, this horse is going to be on the lead. There's no real speed. Everyone's hoping for speed. Jack is going to be the speed in this race, but hopefully he can get away with easy fractions and then get brave up front and have everyone, try and come after him down the end.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting the Simonoviches through you at the NHC. So it was the dad and the two sons, and we were all sitting together. And it was this year's NHC when our good friend Jose Arias was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And for those players out there who don't know, Jose recently passed away, and he's with us every day in our hearts and souls. He was one of us. He was a great horse player. He was the 2014 NHC champ and an inductee into the Horse Player Hall of Fame. But getting back to what you were saying, yes, I think I'm so happy that an owner like the Simonoviches are here. They took a lot of their horses from the Midwest circuit and they said, hey, we're going to try and make a go of it here in Southern California. So I have a lot of respect for them and for what they're doing. And, if Lamplighter Jack wins, I'll be rooting, but that wasn't one of the horses I came up with. So tell me how you're going to approach this race from a wagering standpoint.
Well, $100 bankroll, $50 to win on the 4. In my contest, when the 4 wins, I'm sitting pretty, especially hopefully with the double going into this race as well. Of course, I've got a backup ticket. We've got a couple of backups here. Catlin Peak, Phil trains almost all my horses as well. So, I kind of always keep an eye on Phil's horses. I get, some good insight into, what he's sending out. Rispoli's riding. He's off to a fantastic meet here already. And, when trainers and jockeys get hot, you got to pay attention to that. Even if you think the race flow is not going to go for them, sometimes, jockeys win the race.
Yeah, hot trainers, hot jockeys. I say that all the time when I do the Newcomer Seminar here, because, you and I like to do all the work and get a little bit lost in the weeds. But for people who are coming out to Del Mar for the first time, you don't have to overthink it. This is a prestigious meet. The best trainers are gearing up their best horses here. So they're going to win a lot of races. And then once a jock starts to get hot and is riding well, the trainer with all those good horses is going to want the best jocks. So sometimes It's just as easy as looking at the standings in the program and, having some of the newcomers, giving them something to root for, making somewhat of an informed decision because they're not going to sit there and try to learn how to read the racing form on the first go round. So Lamplighter Jack in race 9, possible wire job. Let's move on to race 10. Calbred $50,000 maiden claimer for fillies and mares, contested at 5.5 furlongs on the main track. Morning line favorite is number 5, Zoe's Pride at 7-2. She's a 3-year-old maiden special weight dropper, so there is a little bit of class relief, but those maiden special weights have come at Pleasanton, Golden Gate, and Emerald Downs. So how much class relief is that? I'm not sure. It looks like you're going to take a little bit of a stand against Zoe's Pride on the win end.
Yeah, the horse I landed on is absolutely a horse I would land on every single contest, just the way it's playing out. This is a tough race. I went with Kayla's Joy.
Okay.
And it's Del Mar. Sometimes we're going to look at some of these small stables and small, ownership groups and why are you putting your horse here? And it's Del Mar. You win here, that carries around the rest of the country and follows you the rest of the year. So you bring your best stuff to Del Mar. You want to win here, especially on opening weekend. There's a lot of times we might toss horses that have been on the bench for a long time. Hey, they're going to need a race, except when it's at Del Mar, because a lot of times they're targeting certain days when they come out here. Kayla's Joy, I thought this was just a bad race looking for chaos. Now, the favorite will probably win, which is how it has been for me at Del Mar this weekend, but it won't stay like that. Bullet works, drops in class. Usually Bullet works, especially in a claim where you'd be like, yeah, claim bait. But for these small stables, I'm okay with that. And I know horse racing is an expensive business. So when you get a chance to place a horse, it's not like the old days where you would kind of get them into shape, race them into shape for the win. You kind of almost have to win every time, or it gets really, really expensive. So especially for these small stables, I'll definitely look at horses like this coming in with, nice workouts and a great price, I think, in a race that's going to probably be chaotic. And then this race is so bad, we've got a Baffert debuting for a 50K claimer. How, you don't see that too often either.
You don't. But I love what you're saying about small barns, because you're absolutely right. For a small barn, a win at Del Mar could make their year with all the money that they could make here, just with one win. So they're trying their hardest out there. So the other thing that I found interesting about Kayla's Joy is that she is a 4-year-old against a bunch of 3-year-olds. And even though we're getting along in the season, I still think it's pretty important, especially when it comes to fillies. The 4-year-olds are just a lot more physically mature than the 3-year-olds. And I always try to give them an extra look, even if the form might not look so good. And, you talk about some small barns having some success here and trying to really gear up for this meet and make some money. Last year, Paula Capestro had a terrific meet. She claimed a couple of horses from back east. She brought them here, and she won some good races. So keep an eye out for the smaller barns. Ed Freeman, too. He doesn't have that many horses, but he makes the most of it. I think he won a 67% strike rate last year with 6 starters. So if you can find the barns like that are being overlooked because everyone's gravitating to the Bafferts, the O'Neills, the Millers, etc., you're getting added value. There's, the price is already good, but you're getting an even better price because the public, the common money is over betting the bigger names. So I really look
at your friends on Friday with that big price win, opening day.
The Mongolian Legend horse with Jerry Wallace, exactly. Yeah. Love to see that, and especially on opening day. My goodness, we know how hard it is to win a race at Del Mar any day, but on opening day when everyone is all geared up and putting their best foot forward, that was super nice to see. And I was really happy for Yvonne and Bob Turner and for Jerry Wallace, who were able to get a really good moment in the winner's circle on Friday. So, all right, let's move on to race 11. It's an open $25,000 claimer contested at 8 furlongs on the turf. The rails are at 0 feet. Morning line favorite is number 6, Overdue, at a tepid 7-2. We've seen these very lukewarm morning lines all meet 3-1, 7-2. Maybe a horse is 5-2. That just shows you how competitive these races have been here at Del Mar. It's been incredible. We haven't seen a race where there's a 3-5 shot in a 6-horse field on a morning line favorite in a 6-horse field. Every race 10 horses. We had to dust off the 16 saddle cloth the other day because it's crazy. So another $100 bankroll race. Let's say you're sitting pretty in the contest. What are you doing here to get?
If I'm sitting pretty in the contest, I'm probably going to be pressing these even more and getting a little crazier when I look at how far I'm ahead of where I want to be, or if I'm still trying to play catch up, or if this is my a couple of these contests. The last 2 races have actually what got me in the money with the doubles. Hitting those right 2 prices. This one, 11. This is my single. I actually hope I get this 6-1 morning line. I doubt it. I think I'll be happy with 4-1. I think this horse should blow them away, but we shall see. This is a claimer race, and this is the only horse not up for a claim. First start since February for Mathis, who had a really big meet last year here at the beach. And JJ gets enticed to ride as well. Racing protected, we've got some good workouts, and Andy owns a piece of this horse as well. That's another thing with these small stables. I also, when you're looking at the form, when you see the owners and the trainers have a little bit of the horse themselves too. It's a little bit more motivation, especially for these smaller stables as well. Usually I'd be worried about the post, but this is a horse that's going to be on the front, you know, so I think JJ is just going to go, and hopefully we're going to wire this field at a very nice price.
Yeah, you mentioned Andy Mathis. I think Andy Mathis does a terrific job. He does really good work up at Golden Gate. But when he brings horses here in Southern California, he does just as good. He had it was opening day? Yeah, I think it was opening day. He ran first and second with two of his horses. And he also trains one of your horses, doesn't he?
Yes, Swall, who raced yesterday. That was a good learning experience. Came out of the race. We just need to cut her back a little bit now.
I think it's interesting that in the two turf races you wanted to talk about, you picked two speed horses. So if the turf course is a little faster today, get two wire jobs at big prices. That'll be nice. We're going to wrap up in a second, but before we do, we had one of our listeners had a question. Can you read that there on the screen?
Oh, no, we didn't actually race there. Our horse and Riley was supposed to go to Royal Ascot. We ran second to the actual winner who went there.
Yeah, where was that race where you ran second?
It was at the Curragh.
Okay, and how do you spell it? Ann Riley? Like
Ann Riley. Yeah, ENNERILLY.
Ann, okay, ENN.
The spelling doesn't help. It's like my name with the Irish. You're like, how do you say it?
Right. It's like Siobhan is spelled like with a B and an H or something. Like it's all crazy. But all right, Ciaran, thank you so much for taking the time and, not only analyzing the race and giving out some interesting horses, but also giving us a little bit of an approach about, what you do during live contest play. And this is the kind of strategy that works for you. You like to isolate long shots, but you also like to have a little bit of coverage because you want to preserve your bankroll. So if you get into a position where you're in striking range, you have a huge shot to win the contest. So I love it. Just one thing I want to mention, if there are any people out there who are listening from home but are local, tonight is the annual PDJF fundraiser at the Belly Up. It's the Permanently Disabled Jockey Fund. And, as horse players, oftentimes we like to be a little bit critical of jockeys because we need to factor that into our handicapping. But I have so much respect for what these jockeys do. I'll tell you right now, if I lost 50 pounds and I was in the best shape of my life, you still wouldn't see me on the back of a horse. So what these guys and girls do day in and day out is just remarkable to me. And unfortunately, some of them do get hurt on the job. And I feel like we all as an industry need to get together and try and help the injured jockeys as much as possible. This is one of my favorite events. It's jockey karaoke at the Belly Up. So it's going to be a good time. And I know you, Terry and Shannon are going to be going tonight supporting the cause. There's also a silent fundraiser there, a silent auction there. So it's just a really, really good time. So anyone out there who's local, go online, Del Mar website, click on the events and click on the tickets for tonight's event, the Belly Up. Ciaran, thank you so much. I'll see you later. Good luck today.
All right.
As I always like to say, good luck to us and let's make some money. We'll be back next week. Thanks.